Hey there, and welcome back to Health, Wealth and Happiness. I'm James.
I'm Joe.
And today's guest is Rajan Shankara. Am I saying that right? Shankara?
That's golden.
Shankara or Shankara?
No, it's getting worse the more you stop.
Shankara.
Say it 5 times.
God, how do you say it? Shankara. Right, I think this may be a take 5. Right, okay. Hey there, welcome back to Health, Wealth and Happiness. I'm James.
I'm Joe.
And today's guest is Rajan Shankara. Thanks for tuning in with us today, guys. Rajan left the world.
Just keep going.
It's been a while.
Actually,
It's getting put out, by the way. You do know that, don't you? This is getting put out.
Yeah, it's fine.
Right, I'll tell you what. I'll take over. Raj, why
No. You're not taking over. No. Hey there, and welcome back to Health, Wealth and Happiness. I'm James.
I'm Joe.
And today's guest is Rajan Shankara. Rajan left the world at 19 years old to become a monk, study his mind, find out what the meaning and purpose of life was, a meditation that could take him to higher states of consciousness. Being trained in one of the world's biggest meditation institutions for over a decade, Rajan studied theology, philosophy and psychology whilst being surrounded by renowned experts on the mind, body and fluid intelligence. And he's helped edit and publish some of the Hinduism's oldest scriptures on health, balance and culture. And Rajan has mentored over 1,000 individuals and is an author of 4 books. Raj, it's good to have you on, my man. How's it going? Talk me through.
Hello. Nice to be here. That was wonderful reading. Well done.
Yeah, that was a long one, mate. It's a long intro, but here now. How's it all going? Tell us, for the listeners, who is Raj?
All right. So it's just your basic story of a distraught teenager who doesn't know what the hell life is all about and just decides to leave everything, sell his business and go off into the jungle to study meditation. Just
not very basic.
Typical, right?
Where did you go?
What's that, Joe?
Where did you go?
I went to the jungles of Hawaii, the smallest island, Kauai. Are you guys familiar with Kauai?
No, Hawaii.
So there's 5 islands. Kauai is called the Garden Island. It's the smallest public one. There's a smaller island called Ni'iau, but you can't go to it unless you're 100% Polynesian. All right, there's like 100% Polynesian people living there. They hunt. There's no cars. They speak Hawaiian, things like that. You can't go unless you have a full bloodline on Ni'iau.
Okay. And what took you to the jungle in Hawaii?
So I used to be a drug dealer, and
Okay, didn't expect that.
Yeah. When I was growing up, 15, 16, 17, I decided to, I thought that being a man was all about being feared, and to be taken seriously meant to be feared and, making all the money you can, evading police or going to jail. I thought being a thug was the evolution of every man. And I was wrong, essentially. But I was very good at it. And I, one night, after a few years in, so I was 18 years old or 19. No, I was 18 years old. And I got pulled over one night by a cop in the middle of the night down the street from my house. And I had just come back from a supply run. So my trunk was full of different narcotics and weapons. And I got pulled over for tinted windows on the car. Okay, it was too dark. I had all dark windows, and that was illegal. So right away, the cop said to get out of the car and walk over to the trunk. Didn't say anything. That's the first thing he said. Get out of the car and come over to the trunk. So I get out and I go to the trunk, and as I'm walking to the trunk, I basically give up my life. I've pretty much at this point think that my life is over and I'm going to jail, and then I'm going to be prosecuted and go to prison shortly thereafter. Because in Illinois, Indiana, they're very fast. You don't wait around that long. Once you're in jail, you get a sentence, and then if you're guilty, you go to prison. It's a very tough jail system. So I'm thinking, this is it. I'm done. He's gonna open up the trunk, and that's it. And he's got a canine unit with him, so he's got a dog. So we're standing at the back of the trunk, and I'm kind of relaxed and calm. And he says, "Can I search your vehicle? Can I search your trunk? Can I search you?" And I said, "Absolutely, officer." And he said, "Can my dog search your trunk?" And I said, "Absolutely, no problem, officer." And he just kind of looks me up and down a little bit, and he looks me in the eye for a few seconds, but it feels like he's staring at me, like into my soul. And he turns his flashlight off, says, "I trust you," and then walks back to his car and drives away. And I'm just standing there at my trunk, like free, realizing that some kind of divine intervention has taken over. So that night, I kind of vowed to change my life and never commit a crime again, and actually be an honorable, decent person and give back to society. And I did. So shortly thereafter, I started a company with my friend, one of my best friends. We started an asphalt company, and we became very successful. That following year, we started to make thousands of dollars a day. And we just started to take over neighborhoods and just parking lots and businesses and law offices. And we were extremely successful right away. And if you hustle in the construction field, you can make a lot of money very fast. And it was too fast. So me and my friend were making all this money, living on our own, enjoying life, and we were miserable. And I was depressed. I was drinking every night, and just a wreck and a mess. And as soon as the money came in, it was gone. And I kind of didn't understand. I thought life was better the more money you had. And I realized that that's not true. So I'm realizing that it's not better to be feared. And it's not better to be a mean thug. It's not better to have all the money you want. And so I was kind of confused, and I was thinking, well, what the hell am I alive for? Why am I here? What is the point of being in this body? So my business partner and friend gave me a book about a monk. 1 week we couldn't work because it was raining, and if it rains in the asphalt world, you're not working. So I took this week and just read this book that my friend gave me. He said, "You got to read this book. It's going to help you out." And it was a glorious tale about this monk's life, and how meaning and purpose came to him by surrendering to the forces of nature and learning how to master his mind. So when I finished the book, I decided that was what I was going to do. I told my family that I was going to leave the world and go into the jungle and attain self-mastery. And that's exactly what I did. I gave my company away to a friend who needed it. My business partner decided to quit as well. And my sister said she would live with me for a month in the wild to show me how to survive. and because she is a wilderness expert. And my father said, he made me a deal. He said, I'll buy your plane ticket, your one-way ticket to Hawaii, if you come with me to New Orleans to clean up after Hurricane Katrina in 2006. This was 2006. And I said, okay, I'll come with you. I went with him for a week. We cleaned up houses, and basically the system was that if you had a house in the lower Ninth Ward and it was water damaged to the point where it was unsafe to live in, the government was going to knock down your house. However, there were these nonprofit organizations going out there and clearing out the rotted walls and putting up new walls. And it was very minimal, but at least that meant that your house wouldn't be knocked down. And we were essentially saving people's homes just on our own time. And it was an amazing project. So my dad fulfilled his end of the bargain. He bought me my one-way ticket to Hawaii. And I ended up finding this monastery about a month in of our journey, and ended up staying for 12 years and learning self-mastery and teaching thousands of people everything I knew, and still doing that to this day. I became a civilian in 2018, end of 2018. So I'm now 34. I started that when I was 19.
Okay. So tell me about what it's like to live in a monastery, because I can't even imagine it.
Right, that's a good question. So this was a militaristic organization based on discipline. And you had hierarchy, so everyone was a rank. You have daily roll calls at 5:30 in the morning. If you're about 5 seconds late, there's penalties. And
What?
Hard labor all day. So you want to be in line at 5:30, and that's why you had like 3 or 4 alarm clocks, because if you didn't, you were fucked. And so the first 6 months.
What's an example of hard labor? Doing what?
Oh man, say there's like a field, right? And you're in the sun, and the field is covered in weeds. So normally you just take a tractor and plow through the field and get rid of and till the soil so that you can plant. But instead of the machine doing it, you did it one by one with your hands all day.
Wow.
So you quickly learn never to miss roll call. It's rule number 1. So for the first 6 months, you're a cadet. There's no penalty. You're just shown the system. You're expected to do your best. And only when you come back and take vows and become a monk are you under scrutiny and penalized for doing things wrong. So the first 6 months was amazing. I was allowed entry by a magical process that I talk about in this book that I just published, basically being denied entry and denied training, and eventually making it in. And you have to kind of prove yourself that you're worthy to become a monk. So that involves staying for 6 months, learning the system, going through each of the 5 departments, okay, accounting, media and publishing, church membership, temple duties and cooking, and landscaping, and construction work. So you're cycled throughout the departments with other people in your class. I had about 4 guys in my class in 2006, 2007. I ended up being the only one making it. And it's rare to make it past the 6 months. So I made it, and you have to leave and go back home, and you have to change your name legally. and then tell everyone that you're going off to become a monk. You can't just stay there and say, I'm going to do this. It's too easy. You have to go and face people that you grew up with. You have to put it in the newspaper in the town that you grew up in. You have to tell your parents. You have to make sure that it's not you know, just a vacation. This is something that you're dedicating your life towards. So I did that. I was like, of course I can do that. And it's what I needed, like the discipline. I was so thirsty for discipline and challenge and hardship, and I don't know why, but the militaristic aspect spoke to me, and it was like, this is self-mastery. And in fact, I do believe, after visiting institutions all around the world like this, I believe it is one of the most disciplined and highest standard institutions in the world. And that's what they told me. They said, this isn't going to be easy. You've never done this before. You've got an attitude. You're egotistical, and we don't think you're going to make it. But you know, you can try. So I said, you know, I'm going to fucking try. And I was just like when I was a drug dealer. I said, I'm going to be the best goddamn drug dealer I can be. I was like, I'm going to be the best monk I can be. I'm going to do this. And that maintains throughout whatever I do. It's like, I'm going to be the best at this that I can. And I'm either all or nothing kind of guy. Like when I was drinking, I was like, I'm going to be the best at being able to hold as much as I can when needed. And I can still hold my own.
Yes, you didn't learn that trick at the monastery then.
So the monks, they drank every night.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we drank. So I made 500 gallons of beer every year. I was the head brewer, and I was in charge of.
What did that taste like?
Huh?
And what did that taste like?
Oh, it was good. I studied fermentation science after about 2 years in, and I learned how to make every style around the world.
Okay.
And we had.
Was it good, or did you just convince yourself it was good? The reason I ask this question, so I've got a lot of clients in Saudi Arabia, and over there is no alcohol, and I've got a lot of sort of British clients over there, and a lot of guys, a lot of friends over there, and every single person you ever meet in Saudi Arabia makes the best beer in Saudi Arabia. Okay? And all but one of the guys, which I'll not name him because it might get him in spot of bother, it's disgusting.
So I've given my beers to beer judges and connoisseurs around the world, and apparently it was good.
Okay.
So yeah, you know, but I'm biased, right? But I didn't fuck around. I mean, I studied. I made a yeast lab and inside a brewery inside the monastery, and I studied how to biologically split cells and create pure strains and ferment the finest ingredients. And I think I did a pretty good job. And so, yeah, the monks definitely relax at the end of the day. But so I come back, I have to beg at the monastery wall outside every day for 3 times a day before becoming a monk. And so sometimes you're left outside, sometimes you're brought in for the day. Every day, though, you have to perform this hours-long meditation where you're sitting at the wall and monks are walking by and they're like, you're not going to make it, you know, this is too hard, you might as well leave now. And you are immediately psychologically broken down. And so that they can, and you have to be before the age of 24. You can't come in if you're older than 24. It's too hard to break an old man. So I made it through that stage. I come in and I'm set to the landscaping and construction department. And I did that for 7 years. I learned construction, carpentry, electrical, plumbing, landscaping, farming, gardening, mechanics. You're turned into a machine, basically, that can meditate and be clear on the inside, and follow instruction and orders and be clear on the outside. And it's yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. And that's how it is. And there's this philosophical side where you're a monk, but then there's a soldier side, and you're a priest at the same time, learning invocations in the temple. And it's truly a classical priest, philosopher, soldier type situation that you had in 16th century Japan, 15th century Japan, how Buddhist priests were trained. And that's where the founder got his inspiration, from Japanese culture. And you're allowed to learn and excel in different areas on your off time. So it's like 5:30 roll call, 6 o'clock meditation, 7 o'clock to 7:15 free time, 7:15 to 8 breakfast, 8 o'clock to 12:30 work, 12:30 to 1:08 cleaning, 1:08 to 1:30 lunch, 1:30 to 3 o'clock gym training, 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock work, 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock training again, and 7 o'clock to 9, relax, have a drink, have a glass of wine, a glass of beer with your brothers. And then 9 o'clock lights out, and you do it all over again. So I did that for 12 years. And I traveled 5 to 6 days a week. We had 1 day to 1.5 days where you still had to work, but you could wake up at like 6 instead of 4 or 5. So it was a little relaxed on 1 day or 1.5 days, depending on the calendar. We didn't use the Gregorian calendar, yeah? We used the lunar calendar. So we went off cycles of the moon and the sun, according to Eastern astrology and astronomy. So we used the Gregorian calendar around the world because of Christian domination. But in a monastery practicing an Eastern faith, like Hinduism or Buddhism, you wouldn't follow a Gregorian calendar because that's based off something that you don't necessarily follow. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So before 2,000 years ago, there was another calendar that humans didn't follow, January, February, March, April, and said that, it was the year this, and this. In the Eastern faith, it's like the year 5150. It's not 2020 because someone said 2020 years ago that we should mark this as the first day. That's not universally believed in.
It's the same with Islam as well, isn't it? So they have I'm going to butcher it, I think the Hijri calendar.
Yeah, I don't know specifically, but yeah, you're right though. Yeah. I'm sure Judaism has a different, Christianity is not that old. So a lot of other faiths that Christianity has stolen from have followed something else well, let's see, Hinduism is the oldest religion in the world, and the civilizations of data and culture go back like 10,000 years. So if you go to parts of the Middle East and go to places called Mohenjo-Daro, it's one of the oldest civilizations known to man. They're revealing things about the Hindu culture, and there's nothing older. And then the oldest human remains, I think, are 75,000 years old. So between the oldest bone and the oldest civilization, of culture, not just of cave, you have a lot of things going on, and it all kind of changed with Christian domination. So, those are some of the things you learn in the theological world. But so that's what that was like, Joe. That's what your day-to-day is. And apart from my work, which was construction for 7 years, I also did 5 years of writing, editing, publishing. And I wrote for the International Magazine of the monastery. I managed 16 pages. I did travel coordination, you know, budgeting, accounting, all that stuff, and teaching, mentoring, and learning philosophy from many different areas, and just reflecting on the nature of why we're all alive, why we're all here.
So you had a lot of impact on a lot of people doing what you did for that 12-year period. I mean, for you personally, what was the shift? What made you say, all right, I want to come out of that environment now and go back into the real world? What was that shift? What was that moment that made you say, I'm going back now?
Yeah. So before you take final vows, basically this academy takes about 12 to 15 years to graduate from. Meaning, upon graduation of the lower ranks, you sign your final rank vow. You become the highest rank that you can, essentially, before becoming a guru. And that's not guaranteed. So you don't know if you become the head of the monastery unless you're appointed that. It's just like you don't know if you're going to be a pope. You're just a bunch of cardinals get together and they're like, this is the guy. And same thing in the monastery, to assign the founder, or to assign the head of the monastery, the senior group gets together and they're like, all right, this is going to be the guy. So my guru was the head. He was chosen from the founder. And so everyone else tries to attain this higher rank, and it's called Swami or Sannyasin. It means one who's thrown down the world. And it's a lifetime vow. So everyone before that is on 2-year vows. And so at the 10-year mark, I was entering the stage before that highest rank. Okay, so I had done well. I had been promoted accordingly. And before you go into that rank, you have to go into a 2-year period, what's called inner fire. And it's a challenging period of intense work and meditation and another psychological breakdown known as the death of the ego. And you're brought into a hellish, depressive, anxiety state of psychosis so that you can kind of lose your identity and regain it as to who you really are in life. And you either go one way or the other. You either find out you're supposed to be a monk, or you find out you're not supposed to be a monk. So after the
10 years into it.
What?
And you only find this out 10 years into it.
Yeah. That's why I say the institution itself is unique. Every other institution, 2 years and you're in that highest rank, and you're like valued, you're worshipped among the community, and they're creating amazing people, but at the same time, there's a lot of bullshit. And people go into it with ego, and they only have to work for a few years, and all of a sudden, boom, they're in the cloth, they grow the beard, and they know everything. But this institution was like, we are going to produce the real deal. And so 10 years, you're given this kind of, probation period, and then 2 years of intense training. And then 12, it's about 12 to 15 years. If you're good, 12 years. If you need some work, 15 years. All right. So I did it in the 12. And when I finished with the process, I realized who I was. I was like, I'm not ready to give up all of the things that I've learned about myself. I'm not ready to give up family. I understand the value of family now. For the first time in my life, I understood how precious family was. I wasn't ready to give up, fitness and personal training and learning about biology and psychology and helping people. So in the rank that I was going to, you essentially die as an individual and you're reborn into the group. And I wasn't ready to give up individuality. I was finally understanding the power of individuality and how each man and woman themselves are this walking scripture. They're a walking cultural lineage in and of themselves. So to be a part of the group would have meant self-destruction of who I had become, and I had loved who I had become. And that's the challenge. That's the challenge of what they're asking you, and they know that. And so
was it your choice? Was it your choice? Was it your choice to pull the plug on it?
It has to be, yeah. It has to be. You're not in prison, you know. You're not forced to be there, but you are forced to make a decision. And I was given 2 years to specifically think about that decision, and I made that decision. And you know, at this point, you only see your family maybe once every 5 to 8 years. You talk maybe once a year, if that. And taking that vow means that highest rank means you don't communicate with family anymore. You have you have a funeral ceremony. They change your name again, and you are burned. You are burned alive from that side of you, that identity. Yeah. And you forever serve, you know, in that capacity. And you've thrown down the potential world. And that's twofold. You throw down the potential joys that come from the world and the potential sorrows. So the basic idea is he that gives up also gives up the sorrow that comes with it. And that's the idea, to renounce the duality of life. Now, I had changed in that 2-year period, and my philosophy had become, I value both the sorrow and the joy that comes from life. I value the person you can become through challenge, through pain and sorrow, and through joy and praise and happiness and family. And that's okay. That's like and they understand that. But you throw in the towel, essentially. You throw in the towel, you give up, and you're cast aside. And they give you $2,000 and a plane ticket to wherever you want to go. And you never existed there, and you have nothing to do with them anymore. And you didn't do anything there.
So again, very naive, but just talk to me about, so is there no personal belongings? There's no,
correct.
There's no money. There's no mobile phones. There's none of that sort. So you went 12 years.
Well, we did use technology. So it is a powerfully IT-centered institution. So because it's an international organization, and we coordinate things all over the world, we used Macs, we used iPhones. So we were trained to be technologically advanced. I used Adobe InDesign. I can create anything in Adobe except for Illustrator. But you're taken through the levels of learning everything you can to benefit the work of the monastery.
But you had no personal material belongings for all that period?
No. And nothing was mine. I had to wipe the data from my computer, from the phone. Everything goes back to them. My robes went back, my beads, my ring went back. So I wear a ring today to kind of symbolize the ring that I once wore for 12 years, except they couldn't take off the earrings. There's something about the metal they use that they won't come off. And I've had people try to,
It won't come off.
they have to be cut open. The metal no longer opens and closes with the clasp or with the split. It's frozen in place. And like, for example, I was at the dentist once and they were going to take a scan of my teeth, and they said you have to remove your earrings for the scan to work. And so they had tools and pliers, and no one could take off the earrings. And they'd have to cut through them with a, like a little to a Dremel or something like that. So that's the only my earrings are left from my time there, and everything on the internet.
So how did you go from having that for 12 years to then stepping off of that plane?
Yeah.
So they gave you $2,000. Where did you go?
Yeah, I called my sister and I said, I'm not going to be a monk anymore. And she practically she practically lost it. She said, come to Texas. We're all in Texas now. My family moved at some point from Chicago to Texas. I don't know why, but I've never been very close to my family. So I'm 2 years out. I'm rebuilding that time lost. I'm learning how to be an uncle and things like that, but it's not easy. It's not easy. So they said, come to Texas. And a friend of mine who I reached out to, who I gave my asphalt company to, I reached out to that guy and I was like, hey, what's going on? What are you doing? And he said, I'm a successful businessman. I own 3 businesses in Colorado. He's a former felon. He's like, I wouldn't have made it, without you. Come to Colorado, and I'll show you how to live again. And then you'll get a place by me, and I'll help you out. And so I said, all right, I'm going to spend 2 weeks in Texas and visit family, and then I'm going to go out to Colorado. So I went to Texas, and my brother-in-law got me a bank account, helped me get a bank account. I put the money in there. I took some of that money out for a cell phone. And
how did it feel getting off of that plane after you spent 12 years in a monastery? How did it feel? That must have been so emotional, seeing your family.
Yeah, it was. I was trained how to be a soldier, so I felt very much like a soldier. And people would come up to me and be like, how long did you serve? And just that's the first thing they would say to me. We were taught to sit up straight, to walk straight, not look at the ground. So I felt like having just come out of a war, basically. And I was surrounded by civilians. And I felt great. I felt like motivated, and I knew what I was going to do. I knew I was going to be a mentor to young people. I knew that right the day I left. So I had 2 days to leave. Okay. So I had 2 days to assign all my duties to someone else in the department. And I wrote down some valuable phone numbers of people that I had met along the way. And I reached out to them as soon as possible. I said, I'm not going to be at this email any longer. You'll be able to reach me, or I'll reach you in 2 days, basically, with my new identity and logins. And I met some very amazing people. So I'm outside. I'm not used to being alone. That's the hardest thing that I dealt with. I had a little bit of anxiety and shock from being alone. Monks always travel in pairs, no less than 2. And
why is that?
So it's so that you don't get thrown off the path.
Right. Okay.
You see some beautiful woman and you start talking, so that it prevents that. So the other monk is kind of guarding. And I'm with family, and that was weird. Hugging was weird. Picking up a kid was odd, and being a human was difficult because you go from machine to human overnight. And it was like, it doesn't work that way.
How did your brothers, as you described them, how did they react when you said, right, I'm done?
Yeah. So I had to meet with everyone, at least all the seniors before leaving, and just talk about it. So about half of the, let's see, I would say about a quarter of the guys wouldn't look me in the eyes. They wouldn't say a word to me. It was like, you're dead.
Instantly, like that?
12 years, and then you're dead. Fuck off. You're weak. You throw in the towel just after 12 years. And so, I mean, these are guys who are 40 years in. So they're institutionalized. They're in for life. So then the young guys who I trained and saw come up, you know, they were like, you're going to do so great. You're going to do amazing. We'll miss you. And it was emotional. I cried like a baby for 2 days. And some of the hardest guys that trained me were the softest when I left. They were like, you're going to do amazing. We wish you the best. You know, it was a mix of emotions. And then, you know, you had the guys who were like, you know, one or two who were like, you know, good luck, but to hell with you. And they said that, you know, you're going to fail, basically.
Wow.
And these are the people that you put your soul into. They're your family. That's all you know. And so they're telling you different things. And so you have the guys that you trust, and they're like, look, don't listen to the other guys. They're going to give you the most shit. And it was emotional. It was emotional. And then on the day that you have a plane ride, you gather your shit and walk out the gate and never come back. So the guy who picked me up, so a good friend of mine was a tattoo artist. I'm covered in tattoos around my body. And we had a tattoo artist on the island who did cover-ups for the monks. And basically, I initiated this process because I came in with tattoos of my past affiliations. And I had to get them covered up with art, basically. So I organized that within the monastery, and had someone come in and do this art, and we became good friends because it was hours and hours and hours of work. And so, and he's a world-class artist, and he was leaving the island after 12 years as I was. And so I called him up, said, hey man, I'm leaving. I'm going to miss you. He said, I'm leaving too. I'll take you to the airport. We'll go get some drinks. So he pulls up in the parking lot. He's blaring music, and he opens the door, and he's like, welcome to the world, brother.
But yeah, so had you not heard music for 12 years?
No, we weren't allowed to listen to like pop culture, and we could only listen to cultural music, like you know, Indian drums and flutes and things like that. So very soft, meditative, things like that. So and those last 2 years were also a silence from anything going on outside the monastery. That was right when Trump got elected, and you're cut off from knowing what's going on outside the walls of the monastery.
Listen, I've got something to tell you. No.
But yeah. So he takes me out. We get some shots and everything, and get, you know, it was like lunch at this point, and he sends me off. I have a picture of that moment at the airport, and you know, this was me, you know, in my trained state, athletic and everything, just like a machine. And you know, this was my teacher, my guru, It's hard to see. I'm holding a flame in front of him. So there's a ceremony whenever you see your guru from when he visits, when he travels and comes back. And so, yeah, I asked him if I could have his street clothes and he could have my monk stuff. So I looked, you know, I was allowed to leave with these Indian garments. And so I said, hey man, I need a shirt and some pants. And so we switched. He gave me his stuff. He said, no worries, brother. And I looked a little more normal. And I got on the plane. I meet my sister in Texas, in Austin. And then that starts from there. 16 days later, I'm in Colorado. And I'm on my friend's couch. Oh no, not a couch. He's got a back room. He clears out his back room, and it's him and his wife and his 2 dogs. And we basically spend the next few days catching up. And he then invites me to a mountain biking trip. So in the monastery, I was actually allowed to learn mountain biking. I was allowed to buy a bike, and Hawaii is a beautiful place to explore. So the monks, on the day off, they went out, they went hiking and stuff like that, and would go to the beach occasionally. So I ended up falling in love with mountain biking. And so he was a mountain biker. I was a mountain biker. We went on this trip. I met his friends, and I start to normalize a little bit. And then I come back to his place, and a business mentor who had met me in the monastery, lives in California here. I called him when I was getting out, and he said, okay, I'm going to set up your business for you. And he buys me a website, that a domain for 5 years, helps me set it up, and starts giving me 2 clients a day from his client pool. So after about a week of being in Colorado, I had enough money to get an apartment. So I move out of my friend's back room. I get an apartment. I'm up at 4:30 teaching meditation to people in California, at 5:30 teaching classes, and then my friend in Colorado got me a job in the city, personal training, from noon to the end of the day. So I'm doing about 12 to 14-hour days on the grind, doing what I'm doing, and it all starts from there, and just putting what I learned into practice. And I've been doing it ever since I got out.
And then that's how Zen Mind Academy started to grow, you might say. And
yeah.
Tell us a bit about your book as well whilst we're on
it. The personal training in the afternoons, that's how I met my partner that I'm with, and we're now in California. I got direct training from my business mentor out here. He helped me out. He helped me get set up out here. And then one of my students that he introduced me to when I first got out, who's the director of NARI, which is the Research Institute for NASA, is now helping me work for NASA. So that's how I've just been meeting people and teaching, and then people then in return help me and have been giving me a name for myself.
Gotcha. So if you could go back all those years to 18-year-old Rajan, what advice would you give yourself?
I've thought about that before. I would, there's a couple parts of me that would say different things. I mean, everything that happened was for a reason. If I didn't get pulled over that night, probably would have been in jail or dead. I've had 2 people try to kill me before, one with a knife, one with a gun. I've, been in and out of county lockup. I've been in and out of courts. I was headed towards death, an early death or jail. That would have happened. That was where I was going. But somehow I got saved. So I would tell that guy, I'd probably tell them to keep going. Keep doing it. Because there's going to be some things happening. And just to pay attention to the signs.
I think it's that perspective shift, that's that mindset. A lot of us fall into that victim mindset of these things, they happen to us. They don't really happen to us, they happen for us, don't they? Enable us to become the next person, fail forward, shift your perspective and become the man you want to become.
Yeah, that's why that's why that philosophy, that's why I call the book Everything Is Your Fault. It's like your success is your fault. Your failings are your fault. The more you can absorb as your responsibility, the more people will trust you. The more trust that you have, the more honor and responsibility and drive and willpower you will have. The more willpower, you'll have meaning and purpose. And then eventually you start changing other people. And you finally have a reason to be alive. And I suggest that we're never alive. We never go through anything from just ourselves. We go through it for someone else in the future. And if we can attain that level of detachment, then you can immediately transform all of your reactions into something positive, into something dynamic and fluid, so that you can change on a day-to-day basis and not get stuck in old patterns, old scripts. And, you know, discouragement is like a thing of the past. Frustration is a thing of the past. And it comes up from time to time. And my teachers would say, we're not trying to attain perfection. That's not possible in this body. What is possible is progress, and we can immediately kind of transform after our reactions. It's not that we'll ever be reactionless. It's not that I'll never get frustrated again. It's just that if I can instantaneously become another person, then that reaction will subside faster than a blink of an eye. And if I hear news of something that can be perceived negatively, I can sort of blink like an elite tennis player. The difference between an elite tennis player in the Olympics and those that come just before them is the ability to recover between when the ball goes out of their hand and comes back up. And they have this mental game so tuned in, dialed in. If I can do that, that means I can perceive data and immediately transform it through a series of filters and spit it back out as good. This is my purpose. This is something that's supposed to happen. You're never going backwards. You're always going forward in some other way. Things like that.
Sure. No, I find it very interesting. It's the reason why you're in my team, helping people. I find your impact very interesting and inspiring as well. I think it'd be interesting to know
next, Rajan. So where do you see this taking you next?
Right. Well, my partner and I have started a nonprofit organization called Zen Mind Academy. I've so far mentored about 500 young men by myself, and created systems for young men to evolve out of their own bullshit, and just try to dose them and inject them with responsibility on a schedule. And I want to do that for many, many, many people, as many people as I can. So we've gathered some powerful people that I've met along my journey, and we have 5 board members now. And we started with a digital curriculum, and young men have started to receive the training. And every week we highlight one of those young men who have changed their life because of being involved with my work. And I want that to continue on until I die and beyond. And then, you know, we're going to have a facility, we're going to have grounds, we're going to have residency programs for 6 months. You can come, train, learn business, farming, gardening, accounting, meditation, you know, Zen training. physical discipline, and then spit back out into the world to change something else. I'm hoping that I am one day can write another book, but not with the publisher I have now. I'd like, if another publisher contacts me and gives me a contract, I'll write a book for them. But I hate writing books. It's like, this is my 5th one, I think, or my 4th one. It's like every time I don't want to do it, and someone says, please write a book. So I write the fucking book. So I'll do it again if someone gives me a contract to do it, but I'm not doing it after that if I don't get another publisher. And I just hope to reach people with the podcast that I'm doing, and then, you know, live a simple life and raise, you know, my future baby, which is coming in January.
Gotcha.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. I was just saying, yeah, well, where can we find the book? Where can the listeners find your book?
It hits Amazon early next year, but you can buy it from me. I'm almost out of the first batch, but you go to my website, rajanshankara.com/the-book, and that'll bring you to the buying page, and it should still be up. We still have some copies left.
Okay. Cool. Well, I'll put the links below. Where can the listeners find you?
So I do a lot of my work on Facebook. Zen Mind is on Facebook. I do Instagram, but if you Google my name, everything comes up all at once. I'm the only Rajan Shankara who's on Google the first like 3 pages. So RajanShankara, and everything will come up.
Oh man, thank you very much for your time today. I really appreciate it. As I was saying before, very inspirational what you do, and you're leaving a lot of impact. So hats off to you, Matt. Good stuff. See you in the next one. Good stuff, guys.
Hey guys. Bye.